You're listening to 50 Pirates in 50 Days on the Sports Objective Podcast. A new era of East Carolina football is here and will begin on August 31st when Mike Houston leads the Pirates into action at NC State. Between now and then, join us for a daily trip down memory lane as we experience Pirate football through the words of the men who made those memorable moments happen. Here's your host, Bubba Rosenbaum.
Welcome into the Sports Objective Podcast. I'm Bubba Rosenbaum alongside Dave Richmond, and our 50 Pirates in 50 Days series rolls on, and we're catching up with one of Greenville's own, a two-sport athlete from the late 80s and early 90s, David Daniels. David, welcome into the show.
Hey, thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. We appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming on to reminisce about your time in the purple and gold. So take us back there to the late 80s and talk about your recruitment to ECU out of J.H. Rose High School.
Well, out of Rose High, I played baseball and football. I was recruited to East Carolina as a running back and also as a defensive guy, linebacker, outside linebacker. I wasn't heavily recruited, I'll say. I received football offers from North Carolina A&T, Howard University, and East Carolina. And where we played football at, where the old high school was, it was next to Scott Hall. So we'd walk across the street for our home football games, and we played at East Carolina University, our home games. And I always wondered, what would it be like to play college at East Carolina? And I got the football offer, and I accepted to come to East Carolina. I was recruited by Coach Donnie Thompson. I actually played football in high school with his son, Don Jr., and I signed in 88 and came on to East Carolina to play football.
Now, in terms of baseball, of course, when you look at Eastern North Carolina, so much baseball tradition, and J.H. Rose is certainly a big part of that, playing for the legendary Ronald Vincent. So talk a little bit about Coach Vincent and then also your recruitment for baseball.
Well, for baseball, I think Coach Overton was at East Carolina. It was like a wait-and-see thing as far as if I was going to accept the offer in football. I accepted the offer in football. Coach Overton watched me play in high school under RV. And my senior year in high school, we went, I think, 26-1 or 25-1. We lost the state championship in 4A. I came on to East Carolina. In 1989 and 1990, I played on the baseball team. And in 1990 at East Carolina, we had won I think it was a CAA conference championship. And I only played 2 years of baseball at East Carolina. I played 4 years of football.
So shifting gears to your football career at ECU, you were coming in 1988, the final year of the Art Baker era. And Coach Baker, his teams ran the option. You had Travis Hunter as the quarterback. So talk a little bit about the offense and the way things were then, and going against the likes of Robert Jones and so forth in practice every day.
Yeah, that's correct. Under Art Baker in 1988, we ran the option. A lot of the plays were started off of the trap play or dive play to the running back, and everything was predicated off of that. But going against Robert Jones and some of the other players we had there was, it was trying at times. There's always a competition my freshman year with Coach Baker, and that year the season didn't go as well as we all hoped it would go. And Coach Baker, I'm not sure the circumstances, but he either was let go or he resigned after, I think it was the 9th game. Then the next year, we got Bill Lewis in, and it was like a complete engine change, I'll say, because things got a little bit more intense, a little bit more hurry up and go. But Art Baker was more or less like a father figure, I'll say. but you still respected him as the football coach, but he was more like a father figure. Then we had Coach Lewis. It was pretty much, straight business. This is how it's going to be. This is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to get it done.
So with Coach Lewis coming in, I know your initial running back coach under Coach Lewis was Steve Logan. Obviously, a lot of people think of Steve Logan in his time as a head coach and coaching quarterbacks, but he was actually the running backs coach on Coach Lewis' initial staff. So talk a little bit about Coach Logan as a running backs coach.
When Coach Logan as a running backs coach, he taught me personally how to read the defensive backs, how to read the defensive lineup. I was pretty good as far as defensive line, linebackers, how everybody's blocking was. And he pretty much introduced to me how to read, defensive back coverages. And that, helped me out tremendously. And from there, I could tell that he either had a teaching background or he took a liking to me and he showed me that wrinkle in the offense of how to read defenses, and it really helped me out as far as the running game and the passing game and why we're calling this pass play and why we're running this, and it helped me out overall.
So in those junior and senior seasons, that's when I know your junior year you really came into your own after having played as a freshman and sophomore and put up some okay numbers, but then in 1990 you ran for more than 500 yards, averaged 5.5 yards a carry and 5 touchdowns. So talk a little bit about your progression and your development as a player.
Well, that year, I think that was the first year I did not play baseball, and I participated fully in spring football practice. Going into the fall, I'm going to say I probably understood what the offense was trying to do, Bill Lewis's concepts. Coach Logan was in my ear a lot about, why we're doing things. And everything seemed to click for me that junior year. And I did, like you said, put up some half-decent numbers.
David,
Sorry, go ahead, Dave.
David, I wanted to ask you a question as far as we've had a lot of guys from your era come on during the, say, Art Baker, Bill Lewis era, and I know Ken Burnett, different ones that they kind of feel like you guys laid the foundation, and of course, leading up to the Peach Bowl. Can you talk about? I know when Bubba was talking, it just triggered a question when he was talking about your progression as a player, but as a team and a program, can you talk about the transformation from being kind of like where we are now in the present time of 2019, where the things were kind of low as far as the number of wins, to the time you guys left, where the biggest win total in the history of the school?
It almost, looking at it from the outside, it appears to be the way it felt to me when I was going through it. They made a coaching change. They're getting a new coach, and he has a blueprint for the way he has done things at the schools that he has been, and it's worked for him. And I believe he's going to institute that same blueprint here. And I'm hoping he gets the same results as he's had in years past, because Greenville and Eastern North Carolina needs the Pirates to do, to make some wins. And more wins take care of any headaches or any issues that people may have.
And no doubt about it. And also the fact I know there was a thing about in the paper recently about the economic impact that these, sporting events, but particularly right now, as you know, playing baseball and being from Greenville, David, how big baseball is, and these tournaments, state tournaments and things bring in millions of dollars for the local economy. Just look how much, just a home game, I think I heard $2 million. It's a lot of money. And when the Pirates are not winning, it also hurts us financially as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't know those numbers, but I knew there was some economic impact there. And, of course, the better you do, the better those numbers are for sure.
Now, David, that 91 season, obviously, there are a lot of things that probably come to mind. But you individually, what's a top memory or two from that season?
From that season, I really remember that losing to Illinois. And that was the first game of the year. And we thought it was a bad call. The onside kick, if I remember correctly, either we didn't recover it or they called us offsides, and we ended up losing the game.
Yeah, we actually recovered it, and then we got called for excessive celebration or taunting, and then the Big Ten apologized to us the following week. A lot of good that did. Exactly. That does nothing. So it was a situation where instead of 1st and 10, right there around midfield, we had 1st and 25 down about our 20 or 25 yard line. Pretty big difference there. But I'll tell you, one of the plays that really comes to my mind, I want to see if you remembered it, was early on in the year. We were down at UCF. We were playing the Knights in the Citrus Bowl, and I want to say it was maybe late in that ball game, but I don't recall. You had a 46-yard touchdown run on a trap play. You remember that? Oh,
yes. That's probably all I could run, 46 yards. But yeah, I remember that. It was a trap play up the middle. I think I made one guy miss, and I made it to the end zone. I do remember that play. That season was I'm gonna have to say magical for us going through it. You're thinking, we're pretty good. We're doing pretty good. We're beating people. Nobody's hurt. The season keeps going on. We started getting ranked. We're seeing ourselves on ESPN, and we're doing darn well here. Next thing you know, we're in the Peach Bowl. It's like, holy heck! Coming from 1988 to January '91 was a complete transformation. And with me at East Carolina.
David, I had a question as far as you're talking about the Peach Bowl and all the people involved in that. We've had so many. You're another great example of why we're doing the podcast and this special series we're doing 50 for 50. Not only because it's summertime and we're just jonesing for football, but also the fact that there's so many great players like yourself that have meant a lot of this program. My question, the reason I'm bringing that up, is the very fact of Coach Houston wants the players back. Can you guys sense that having a new coach, do you think he's sincere when he says that he wants players back at ball games, he wants players back at practice who, like you guys, in other words, if I go out there right now as an alum, member of the media, and I tell a guy to work harder, he's going to laugh at me because I haven't been through the process. But a guy like you climb the mountain, the blood, the sweat, and the tears, that they'll listen to you and not me.
Gotcha. And I do feel that the head coach is sincere. Some of the alumni, including myself, one of the coaches has reached out to us, and he started a email list, and he's going to be getting in contact with us further as far as, what's going on with the season and that sort of thing. We have been reached out. We have been contacted from one of the coaches on the team, and I'm not sure of all the coaches. I forget his name, but I do know the strength and conditioning coach. I went to high school with him. That was, I'm going to say 5 years ago, but we know that's not the case.
I was wondering about that because John Williams being from Greenville Rose, and I didn't want to show my ignorance if he didn't, but I was wondering about that. I knew y'all were he's in that age group. You guys are not that much older than me, so maybe a few years. So I don't think you guys are old at all. 3 years older than me.
Yeah, John's a few years younger than myself.
Oh, okay.
But we were at Rose at the same time. Yeah.
I got you. So as far as another question I had, sorry, Bubba, I was going to ask another one. One of the things that you mentioned, spring practice, how much of a difference is, say if you don't, because the reason I'm asking this, you said obviously playing baseball, you didn't participate in spring practice. How much of a difference is having spring practice as a player and not having spring practice? Is it really that big of a deal?
Looking at it from, I'm going to say, a coach's perspective, you see what you got in your toolbox going through spring practice. As a player, me personally, I didn't like it. That's me personally. I didn't like it. There was only 20 practices. Back then, there was no time limit. So, how much contact you can have, which, as a running back, you're going to get that whether you want it or not. But I was playing baseball for 2 of those years, and there was days I would have baseball practice, leave baseball practice, come over to football. Of course, not get the entire practice in the spring, but there was times I would miss a good bit of the practices too. And I'm sure being on a football scholarship, from a coach's perspective, and I wasn't really participating in baseball, hey, we need you over here playing football, son. We need you practicing versus, sitting on the bench or playing 15, 25% on the baseball field. And that sort of, made me make the decision to just, put baseball on the back burner and concentrate on football.
Kind of another note, David, before we moved on to another question that I had is just Kevin Monroe, who's also from Greenville Rose. He was another 2-sport athlete there for a while between football and baseball for the Pirates back in the late 90s.
Yes, I watched him from afar. I do remember him playing baseball and football, but I remember more of him with the football team at East Carolina. Yeah, he did well.
And a lot of younger Pirates know Kevin as the longtime color analyst on the ECU Learfield IMG College Network. He does an excellent job alongside the voice, Jeff Charles.
Yes.
But the other question I had was, and this seemed like such a natural comparison to me back then when I was 10 years old, in terms of your running style and just the type of player you were. I really drew comparisons between you and Craig Ironhead Hayward. Did you ever get that?
Yes. I was more of a, if I go 46 yards, that's like 100 yards to a 120-pound running back. 46 yards for me was a lot. I was your typical, I call myself a tweener. I was not fast enough to play running back, play tailback, not heavy enough to play fullback. So I was like a tweener. I could give you 5 to 20 yards on any given carry. I wasn't one to, run at 100 yards. Somebody would chase me from behind if I had to run 100 yards probably. But that's more of the running back, the running style I had. I, stiff arm you or give you a shoulder rather than, try to run around you.
David, talking about the present, obviously the Pirates have tremendous coverage in terms of TV exposure with the ESPN platforms and also the CBS Sports Network. I know you're currently up in Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken. So talk a little bit about what you're up to now. And actually, I think after your time at ECU, didn't you get a shot with the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yes. After that season, 91 season, January 91, 92, after the draft, I was undrafted. I was a undrafted free agent with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I went through their training camp, all 4 preseason games. I did not make the team, but I met my wife, and I've been up here ever since. And I watched the Pirates play, like you said, on the ESPN platforms and the CBS platforms they have as much as I can. And being from Greenville, when I'm home, I was just home probably about 3 weeks ago, and I drove around campus. A lot has changed. A lot has changed since then. The stadium, the new build on the stadium is nice.
Yeah, with the Tailbank Tower, no doubt about it. And I want to get your thoughts too, David, about one of the, I guess, the scuttlebutt now going on is about an indoor practice facility coming from where our era, which is, we were lucky probably just to have the Ward building and all that. But can you talk about today's athlete, even though we're in a different generation, a different era from the late 80s to mid 90s from between you and me? Can you talk about the time now? How important is an indoor practice facility as a former athlete?
To make the Pirates competitive, I would say they have to be on, even ground with all of the other football teams, football schools. And I would say that is important. That would be very important to have an indoor facility to, give yourself an even playing field with all the other football schools. It can definitely help, can't hurt.
No doubt about it.
David, it's been great catching up. We really appreciate your time. Hopefully you and your family can get down to Greenville this year for a game. I think we're going to have a lot of excitement compared to recent years, and don't be a stranger. We look forward to catching up with you down the road.
Sounds good, Bubba and Dave.
Thanks so much, Pirate
Thank
Nation.
you.
That is David Daniels.
That concludes this edition of 50 Pirates in 50 Days on the Sports Objective. Remember, join us daily between now and game day as we'll talk Pirate football with players from various eras. All these interviews are available exclusively on SoundCloud and our YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe and follow so you're alerted when we post new content. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, go Pirates!